false, IELTS reading, true, false, not given questions. These are some of the questions that students do find the most difficult when they actually take the test. Now this reading is actually taken from the British Council website. It's a practice reading test from there. So if you do want to do the reading before we go through this lesson, then there's a link underneath the video so you can take a look at that. Now in this IELTS true, false, not given exercise, the text is about chronobiology. You can see that from the first, because it talks about it first here. And chronobiology is basically the daily rhythms of time and how they affect flora and fauna. Flora is plants and fauna refers to animals. Now in true, false, not given questions, you're given a set of statements, in which this case you're given 7 here. You have to decide if, by reading the text, whether each statement is true, false, or not given. If the statement is true, that means it will agree with what information is in the text. If it's false, the information in the text will contradict the information. If it's not given, there's no information on this at all. What often confuses students is the difference between false or not given. So we'll look at that during this lesson. Now the first thing we'll look at is how to find the information in the text from these statements. Now what we want to do when you're doing this is to underline words that you think will help you find the information. So we call these key words in these statements. So these could be things like nouns, times, dates, those kind of things. So if we take a look at these questions, these statements, the first one, number 1, chronobiology is the study of how living things have evolved over time. So in this first one, I would underline chronobiology. So that's the word we'll use to find the answer in the text. Now for the next one, number 2, the rise and fall of sea levels affects how sea creatures behave. So here we could look for something like the rise and fall of sea levels, sea creatures. Question 3, most animals are active during the daytime. So we could look for animals, we could look for something about daytime. Question 4, so circadian rhythms identify how we do things on different days. So here you could look for circadian rhythms, maybe something about different things, different days. Statement 5, a night person. So when we've tried to find this one, we want to look for night person. And question 6, or statement 6, new therapies can permanently change circadian rhythms without causing harm. So for this one we could look for new therapies. We could maybe look for causing harm as well, something about causing harm. Statement number 7, naturally produced vegetables have more nutritional value. So something about vegetables. Maybe we need to look for nutritional value as well. So but if you do this first, go through some of the questions that underline some of the key words, you can do this very quickly. That will just help you then go and find the information in the text. So you can then scan or skim through the text or scan through the text to find this information. Now we'll look at starting to find this information in the text. So I want to scan through the text to do this. Now the first question here you can see, or the first statement, is chronobiology is the study of how things have evolved over time. Now this is clearly a definition of chronobiology. Now the reading is about chronobiology, so you can probably assume this is probably near the beginning, because they're going to want to, if it's a definition, they're going to want to do that at the start of the text, because you need to know what chronobiology means in order to understand the text. So we'll highlight these first of all, and then we'll go to the beginning of the text. to see if we can find out where this first one is. Now, so let's look at the first paragraph that we have here. So this talks about chronobiology. It might sound a little futuristic, like something from a science fiction novel perhaps. And it tells you what it is. It's a field of study concerning the oldest process of life on this planet has ever known. Short-term rhythms of time and their effect on flora and fauna. So this is a definition. So that looks like that is where the first question is. Chronobiology is the study of how living things have evolved over time. So now let's look at the next one. So the next, when you found the first one, you'll know that the other ones are going to follow in chronological order. So they will be in the next paragraphs. So the next one, number 2, the rise and fall of sea levels affects how sea creatures behave. So we want to go to the next body paragraph to have a look at for this one. Now here, sea creatures. If we read marine life, so that looks like the information could be here. The rise and fall of sea levels. Marine life, for example, is influenced by tidal patterns. So that information looks like it's there. Next one, most animals. So we can look for animals in daytime. Now here we are, animals. Tend to be active or inactive depending on the position of the sun or the moon. It talks about coming out during the hours of sunlight. So that looks like that's where that information is. The next one, we're looking for circadian rhythms. There doesn't seem to be anything in this paragraph about circadian rhythms, so it looks like we're going down to the next body paragraph. So circadian rhythms. When it comes to humans, chronobiologists are interested in what is known as the circadian rhythm. So that looks like that's where this is. And it says it identifies how we do different things, and it's explaining here what it is. Complete cycle of our bodies. So that looks like that's where that information is. Now the next one, we're looking for a night person. So if we skim through, then go through again quickly through the text. Night people. So that looks like that is where that information is. Can have a healthy circadian rhythm. Next, we're looking for new therapies can permanently damage. So if we go down, there's nothing about new therapies here. So we'll copy and paste that and look at the next paragraph. So new therapies. Scientists have limited ability to create durable modifications. Recent therapeutic developments for humans. So new therapies, therapeutic developments, recent. So that means the same thing. We talk about causing harm. So if we go through, talks here about health suffering. So that looks like where that one is. And the next one, naturally, number 7, naturally produced vegetables have more traditional value. So we're looking for vegetables. So if we keep going down the paragraph, we can see vegetables here, grown in season and ripened on the tree. Higher in essential nutrients, nutritional value. So that looks where that question is. So the important thing that you should have seen from when we did that exercise is just showing you that when you find that you should underline keywords and use those keywords to scan the text to find out where the answers will be. And once you found the first answer, that you know that the other answers will follow that first one because they're in chronological order. So they'll only refer to a few paragraphs in the reading. It's not likely they'll refer to the whole reading. So in this case, you've got statement 1 refers to the first body paragraph. Statement 2 and 3 are in the second body paragraph. Statements 4 and 5 are in the third body paragraph. And statements 6 and 7 are in the fourth body paragraph. So what this means is that you can actually ignore the paragraphs after this for the purposes of answering these IELTS reading true, false, not given questions. So all of these paragraphs that follow So they are all not relevant to the question, so we're just focusing on this section of the reading. Now, something important you should have noticed as we've been doing this IELTS reading true, false, not given exercise is the importance of synonyms. Now, synonyms are words or phrases that have the same meaning, exactly the same meaning or similar meaning to another word or phrase. Now, those are very important in order to find where the answer is in the text or just to answer some of the questions. So just to take an example, if we look at statement 2 here, we can see when we tried to find the answer, we had the rise and fall of sea levels. However, it didn't say that in the text. It said tidal patterns, which means obviously the same thing. Or in the statement we have sea creatures, but in the text it says marine life. So it's very important in IELTS reading true, false, not given questions to make sure you're aware of synonyms, but this is actually the case with all of the IELTS reading for any type of questions. Often the questions will use synonyms rather than the actual words that are in the text. Now the next thing we're going to look at is how to answer these IELTS reading true, false, not given questions. So we'll look at the first one. The first statement is chronobiology is the study of how living things have evolved over time. And we've worked out that the answer is in this paragraph. Now what you need to do, you scanned the paragraph to find the information quickly, but now you need to read very carefully to try and find out if the information is true, false or not given. Now we can see that if we read through the paragraph, we can see it's a field of study that concerns one of the oldest processes life on this planet has ever known. And the definition is here: short-term rhythms of time and the effect on flora and fauna. Well, this is a study of living things, so that seems true so far. But it's the short-term rhythms of time. Here we have evolved over time. Now to me those don't mean the same things, because evolved over time is suggesting long-term changes. However, this is discussing short-term rhythms. So it looks like this one is probably false. So we'll write the answer as this for this one as false. Okay, now let's look at question 2 for this IELTS reading true, false, not given exercise. So statement 2, the rise and fall of sea levels affects how sea creatures behave. Now we've seen that the answer is here. Marine life, for example, is influenced by tidal patterns. Now the answer to this one is true. Now that's because these two sentences are saying exactly the same thing. What's actually been done is the information has just been turned around the other way. So you can see that if we place that here, these are saying exactly the same thing but in a different pattern. So for example, we could say, if we take this one here, we could say how sea creatures behave is so we've just changed that information round. You can see they're saying exactly the same thing. Marine life is influenced by tidal patterns. How sea creatures behave is influenced by the rise and fall of sea levels. So they are saying exactly the same thing. So this question, the statement is true. Okay, so now we'll look at question 3. So most animals are active during the daytime. Now the answer we can see is here where it talks about animals who are active or inactive depending on the position of the sun or the moon. So numerous creatures, humans included, are largely diurnal, so that means they come out during the day. Other animals are nocturnal, which means they prefer to come out during the night. However, are most animals active during the daytime? Well, with this question, this is one where it's very tempting to put true as the answer, because it says numerous creatures, humans included, are largely diurnal. However, numerous is not the same as most. Numerous is just like saying many creatures like to come out during the hours of sunlight. However, if you look at the reading here, it does not tell us actually whether most animals are active during the daytime. We don't actually know that information. We don't know whether more animals are active at night or during the day, just that many are active during the day. We could maybe assume more are active during the day, but we don't actually have the answer. It's not in the text. So in that case, this one is not given. It's these questions that can be very confusing to students, but if you look closely, the answer is not actually there. So that question 3 highlights another tip to be aware of in these IELTS reading true, false, not given questions, and that is to think about quantifiers. Quantifiers are things in English that are used to talk about quantity. So you have things like most, some, so all those words are quantifiers, but they all obviously have different meanings, so you have to be very careful with those. They will sometimes be used in some of the questions, and it could easily trick you into getting the wrong answer. But here, numerous numerous means many, but most equals the majority, so that's not the same thing. Now we'll look at question 4. Circadian rhythms identify how we do different things on different days. Now the answer to this is again giving a definition of circadian rhythms, and we can see the definition is here. This is a complete cycle of our bodies. This is a complete cycle our bodies are naturally geared to undergo within the passage of a 24-hour day. So that is the answer to this question. We should read any more information in case this is connected. Aside from sleeping at night and walking during the day, each cycle involves many other factors such as changes in blood pressure and body temperature. Well, that's not really connected with this. Not everyone has an identical circadian rhythm. So people have different circadian rhythms. That could make you think that's this. But this is not to do with different people having different circadian rhythms. It's how we do different things on different days. So this, you have to be careful. This is not connected, but it might make you think it's connected to being different. So the answer is in this part here, which is the definition. So it's a complete cycle our bodies are naturally geared to undergo within the passage of a 24-hour day. However, this is not the same as what we have here. Circadian rhythms identify how we do different things on different days. It's not about doing different things on different days. It's what we do every day, or the cycle our bodies have within each 24-hour day, which will probably be repeated every day. rather than actually being different. So in this case then, this one is false because it's not the same. In other words, the information contradicts what is said in the text. Now we'll look at statement 5. A night person can still have a healthy circadian rhythm. Now we can see this is where we need to look at for answering the question, so we need to read this carefully to find out if this part of the text contradicts a statement, supports it, or it's not given. Night people, for example, often describe how they find it very hard to operate during the morning, but become alert and focused by the evening. Now, it could be tempting for this question to put not given by reading that, because that tells us, we talk about a morning person or an evening person, somebody who can work better in the evening or work better in the morning, but that doesn't tell us whether they have a healthy circadian rhythm or not. So it could be tempting to put not given. However, if we look a bit further, this is a benign variation within circadian rhythms known as a chronotype. Now, this shows you the importance of having good knowledge of vocabulary in order to successfully complete the IELTS reading test. Benign actually means not, something that's not harmful. So this is telling you that this variation between people, whether they're night or morning people, is not a harmful variation. So that means a night person can still have a healthy circadian rhythm because it's not a problem. So the answer for this one is true. So that question highlights another important tip for IELTS reading true, false, not given questions, or actually for just doing the reading test generally. It's very important to get a high level of vocabulary knowledge in order to successfully complete the IELTS reading test. So learning new vocabulary is probably one of the most important things in order to do well in the reading. If you don't have a good knowledge of vocabulary, you're going to struggle to understand a lot of the reading and possibly misunderstand some of the questions. Now we'll look at statement 6. New therapies can permanently change circadian rhythms without causing harm. Now we know already it's in this paragraph. Here it starts talking about plants and vegetables, which is statement 7. So we're focusing on this part here. Scientists have limited abilities to create durable modifications of chronobiological demands. Limited abilities means it's difficult, so they can't do much. Limited abilities to create durable modifications, so that means it's difficult to create long-term changes of chronobiological demands. Here they're saying new therapies can permanently change circadian rhythms. Here they seem to be saying it's difficult to change them. But we haven't seen anything about harm yet, so we need to read a bit further. Recent therapeutic developments for humans, such as artificial light machines and melatonin administration, can reset our circadian rhythms. So they can change it. For example, but our bodies can tell the difference, and health suffers when we breach these natural rhythms for extended periods of time. So when we do try to change them, our health suffers. So new therapies can permanently change circadian rhythms without causing harm. Well, that's actually wrong. New therapies can change them, they can reset them. However, it does cause harm. This says without causing harm. So that means the information in the paragraph contradicts what is in this statement, because it does cause harm. So the answer is false. What looking at that question highlights again with regards to IELTS reading true, false, not given questions, or any reading questions, is the importance of synonyms. We can see by looking at the statement that different words or phrases are actually used in the text. So here we have new therapies, but in the text they have recent therapeutic developments. We have permanently change. In the reading we have durable modifications. Causing harm, health suffers. So you can see it's very important. They'll always use different language in the statement to what you'll actually see in the reading, which obviously makes it more difficult to find the answers. So you have to be careful with that and look for synonyms or words that are similar or have different phrases. Now we'll look at the final one, 7. Naturally produced vegetables have more nutritional value. Now we know the answer to that one is here. Plants appear no more malleable in this respect. Malleable means something can be influenced or changed. So that doesn't appear, there's nothing about change here, so it doesn't appear connected to that, so it looks like it could be here. Studies demonstrate that vegetables grown in season and ripened on the tree are far higher in essential nutrients than those grown in greenhouses and ripened by laser. So vegetables grown in season and ripened on the tree. So that's going to be naturally produced vegetables. Here it's saying they have more nutritional value. So it's saying vegetables grown and ripened on the tree, so naturally produced vegetables are far higher in essential nutrients than those grown in greenhouses and ripened by laser. So that means the artificially grown ones, because it's in greenhouses or using lasers. So that means this does agree with this statement, because naturally produced vegetables have higher nutritional value than those that are grown artificially. So the answer to this one is true. So finally, this is some key things that we've learned from looking at these IELTS reading true, false, not given questions. The first one is underline key words in the statements to find where the answers are when you start. And then when you've done that, you can scan the reading to find the answers. So you're then scanning for those keywords that you've picked out. Remember that the answers will follow in chronological order, so they follow the same order as the text. Also remember, as we looked in that reading, the answers were only in 4 or 5 paragraphs of the text, so they will appear in a part of the reading, not the whole reading. And when you find where the answer is, you have to read the text very carefully to find out and make a decision if it's true, false, or not given. So for some reading questions you can scan and skim the text, but you have to read very carefully when you find where the answer is. Remember to be aware of synonyms or different phrases that are used in the statement and the reading. Also be aware of quantifiers, because they can actually change the meaning. So remember, quantifiers are things like most, all, some, a few. If you can't find the answer and it's not in the text, then it's not given. And finally, you have to improve your knowledge of vocabulary in order to do well in the IELTS reading test.